Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Fix Blood Sugar webinar. We are excited to have you today. I am here with Dr. Saunders, and we're
Hi,
excited to
it's me.
chat. It's me. Yes, we're excited. We're going to talk about all things type 2 today. And of course, as always, take your questions. So if you are new, welcome. We are glad to have you. If you're watching on Facebook, welcome. You can sign up for these webinars at bartonwebinar.com. I will post that in the comments. And you can also get a link to all of our previous webinars where we talk about all things type 2. So we're excited you're here. Let us know when you guys are here. It looks like we have quite a few people hopping on already. And yes, welcome to 2022. Last time we chatted, we were in 2021. So I'm excited for a new year. Dr. Saunders, are you someone who makes resolutions?
No, my resolutions are ongoing and changing constantly. So
Right.
I just, what I do is I usually will do something like last year was my vegetarian year. I'll do like a different diet because I recommend things to people and people go, that's too hard. And so I'll do it. I'll go, okay. So then I can counsel people and say, okay, if you do this and this and this, and you avoid, like when you're doing, like I was doing gluten-free, and I was going, okay, you got to be careful of certain things, like, soy sauces, especially stuff that have gluten in them. And so I do these weird diets. They're not weird necessarily, but I do all kinds of different things. And so I think for our retreat, I said we're doing, let's see, gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free, fat-free, and no legumes or nightshades.
Yeah,
I can eat everything. I can eat everything else.
no big deal. I know. And the funny thing is we have someone new who's kind of helping to plan some of that. And I'm sure they were like, what do we do? What do we do? Oh, that's so funny. But no, I do. I actually was thinking about that when you had posted some information, or you had posted what you wanted. And I was remembering that you had done, were you mostly vegan for the entire year last year?
Yeah, vegetarian. Yeah,
Vegetarian.
yeah.
And how did that go for you?
Oh, it
In
was
a
fine.
nutshell, what did you learn, I guess?
Well, okay, so I didn't really feel any different. It wasn't like there was a big difference in how things went, and nothing really changed that much. When the family would get together, would eat, I would just like take the vegetables and the salads, and then I separated things when I was cooking. So when I was making tacos, for example, I would make the chicken separately from the fajitas, for example. I wouldn't put it in the fajitas, so I could have the fajitas, and then the kids could have put their chicken on it and everything, and that worked out really well. But it's not easy to do, and I sometimes, like if there was something in it already, like when my wife made shepherd's pie, I just ate the shepherd's pie. Yeah, it's got hamburger in it. So my wife said that I'm a terrible vegetarian because I eat meat sometimes.
That's okay, though. I mean, good for
Yeah.
you, though, for mostly sticking to that for the whole year, though. That's good. Are you planning to do anything food related this year?
So far, I haven't come up with anything that I don't know.
But I will say, guys, I've traveled with Dr. Saunders over the years many times, and he always is eating really healthy. Like sometimes we'll go out to eat and he'll order asparagus. And we're like, what?
I love asparagus.
No, I do too. He does practice what he preaches. He lives by the things that he tells you guys. So he's not just making things up and hoping it works. He actually tests himself on a lot of things. So just so you all are aware. But we also have fun too. It's not always eating healthy. There are, we like to have fun. But when the fun part is when we travel, sometimes we'll have like healthier versions of things. So if it was like a chocolate cake and maybe made out of, I don't know, we had a chocolate cake made out of, what was it?
It was almond flour. It was a keto chocolate cake. It was actually pretty good.
Yeah, and or sometimes they'll try some different like zucchini often can make
Yeah.
chocolatey things too, always experimenting with things. So it's very fun. Anyway, back to the subject for today. We are talking about type 2 on our webinar today. And so let's quick do a disclaimer before we talk about anything.
Okay. The things that we discuss here are for general information for human beings in general. It's not. Even when you ask a question specifically, I'm not necessarily giving you advice for what you have, but I'm thinking of the group, everybody, and saying, okay, generally this kind of a problem is going to show up with this and this, and this is how we handle it. So make sure that you are using the information appropriately for you. So you may have to talk to your healthcare provider and say, okay, does this apply to me? Or I need this test to find out if that applies to me, or something like that. And so that it's that I'm not your doctor. I'm just giving information.
All right, good stuff. Let's go ahead and get started. Type 2. We're just going to have Dr. Saunders do a little bit of teaching. And then, guys, if you have questions that you want to ask Dr. Saunders while he's here live, go ahead and post those in the Q&A, or if you're on Facebook, post those in the comments. I'll try to manage both of those. But this is a really good opportunity for you to ask him things that you have been wondering about. We get so many wonderful questions, and this is such a unique opportunity for everyone. So start asking them. And let's do a little bit of an overview again, maybe for someone new who's joining, maybe what type 2 is, how you visualize it, how you see it, and what is the hope for those with type 2.
Okay. I think that's really important, that every other week we discuss the basics, and because the basics are always needed, we always have to go back to the basics, and get, where's the foundation, what's really going on here. So that's an excellent question, and I always do best with questions because I can answer questions, and that's the way my mind works. So the type 2, what it is, the best way to look at is to contrast type 1 to type 2, because we use the same word diabetes. So when you go to your doctor says, well, I got this test here and it says you got diabetes. And you're like, oh no. And you're like, what do I do? Well, diabetes, that means your blood sugar is high, so we have to lower your blood sugar. What does that mean exactly? And why is my blood sugar high? And blah, 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 all that stuff. So let me tell you how it works. It's not that hard. You have type 1 diabetes, and it's really unfortunate that we use the same name because they're opposite illnesses. Type 1 means your pancreas is not making insulin. And if your pancreas doesn't make insulin, then you can't get sugar into your cells. Those cells are completely covered in a membrane, and that membrane does not allow any sugar to get in. It's blocked. There's no way any sugar is getting through that membrane. So what the body has are these pores, these openings that are in the membrane, but they're locked. And the only way to unlock them is with insulin. So if you don't have insulin, you cannot get sugar into your cells. And so what happens if you don't make insulin? Well, they used to call it consumption. Consumption was a wastebasket illness in the old days before they knew what was going on. And they would find that people would shrink down and shrink down and shrink down and waste away. Literally, their cells are starving to death, and they're wasting away until they die of what? Of starvation. So they could be eating and eating and eating and eating, and if they didn't die from their blood sugar shooting up, over 2,000 or whatever, and go into a coma and die because their brain won't work because the osmotic pressure and I'm getting too detailed here. That if they didn't die from hyperglycemia, too much sugar, then they would just waste away and waste away until they died of 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 starvation, because in order to get that energy into the cells, it requires insulin. They have to have insulin. So that's why it's so important to have that insulin. And that's type 1 diabetes. Type 1 means you don't have insulin. And if you don't have insulin and you can't get the sugar into the cells, what happens to the sugar? Well, it stays in your blood, and the blood level goes up and 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 up, because the cells aren't using it, and you're still eating sugar, and you're eating sugar, and it's being absorbed and it gets into your blood, and then the expectation is that's going to go into all your cells. 100 trillion cells all over your body are going to suck that sugar up and use it for energy, but they can't. So the blood level goes up and up and up. So what about type 2? What's that all about? Well, that's a totally different problem. Type 2 is where you get resistant to insulin. So you have this cell and you eat, and the cell takes in sugar. And then you eat more, and the cell takes in more sugar. And you eat more, and the cell takes in more sugar. And your activity level is such that you're probably at work sitting all day in front of a computer, and then at home all day in front of a whatever TV, computer, whatever. And so your activity level is pretty low. So you aren't using up that energy that you're putting into the cells. So the cell's getting packed with more energy, more energy, more energy, more energy, but it's not getting used. So eventually the cell gets so packed with energy, there's so much sugar in there that it goes, wait a minute, stop. We can't take anymore. And that stop is called insulin resistance. So the insulin says, yeah, take more sugar in, but the inside of the cell is going, nope, block, block, block. We're blocking all of our insulin receptors, and we're not listening to you anymore. So your insulin level starts going up because the sugar keeps going up, and because it's not going into the cells. So then the insulin's going up. So then you end up with high sugar and high insulin. And you're like, what the heck? So you go to your doctor, and the doctor says, you have diabetes. You need insulin. So they give you more insulin. What does that do? Raises the insulin level. And temporarily the blood sugar is going to go down, but you're packing the cells more and more with sugar, and they're getting toxic now on sugar, and they're dying, and you're getting, have you ever heard of fatty liver? That's one of the things that happens with it. The cells are dying from this being toxic on the sugar, and you're injecting more insulin to stuff more sugar into those cells. And so this toxicity is increasing and increasing. I've had people with insulin levels that are 10 times what a normal person's insulin would be. I've had people injecting insulin 10 times what a normal amount of insulin would be, to try to stuff that sugar into the cells. So if you're only focused on the sugar, then you miss the important part, and that is what's going on inside your cells. Well, they're stuffed with sugar, and they're so stuffed with sugar they can hardly function. And so what do you got to do? I mean, it makes perfect sense. You got to use up that sugar that's in your cells. You got to use it. So exercise is a great thing to do. And number two, you got to stop stuffing it in there. So stop eating sugar. Those are the only two things you can do to get rid of that toxicity. It's just like being toxic on anything. If you were toxic on lead, you wouldn't say, well, I need a little more lead, or I need to stuff a little more lead into those cells. That wouldn't be reasonable at all. You would say, I got to get away from all lead, and I got to do some chelation to suck that lead out of my body, get rid of it entirely. Well, that's essentially what we do in our diabetes solution kit. Talks about how to detox. And that's really, it's a simple detox. And it's not the only way to do it, but it's the way we've chosen because it's more broadly applicable. It applies to more people to have this detox program. And it's and phase one is super simple. You go on a 20-gram carbohydrate diet. And what that means is you're not eating enough sugar to run your body on all day long. You can't live on 20 grams of carbohydrates. So what happens? Well, the body starts saying, oh my gosh, I'm not getting any more sugar, and I got to start using up all this extra stored stuff that I have that's stuffed into those cells. I'm going to use it all, and then the body starts using up all that sugar. And guess what? As it's using the sugar, goes, oh, we need to open up some more receptors and suck some sugar in. So they're bringing sugar into the cells, and so now the blood sugar starts dropping down, and the blood sugar starts dropping down, and then the pancreas goes, oh, we don't need as much insulin. Then the insulin starts going down, and then that fixes the problem. It literally reverses and fixes the problem. And it's amazing. And we've had thousands of people write back to us, said, done, it worked, done, it worked. This is really good stuff. Because their doctors told them it was impossible. There's nothing they could do about it. And yet they come back with, my hemoglobin A1C is now normal. I'm non-diabetic on my hemoglobin A1C. My blood sugar is now normal. My insulin level is, has gone from 25 down to 5, and that's normal. So this is the kind of thing that we're seeing with the results from this kind of a program. And it works.
So good. We're getting a lot of comments and questions, so I'm actually just going to start going right into those.
Let's do it.
So Petra actually says, I'm going to start over. My numbers are high. And that's the beauty of this program, guys. If you're not where you want to be, or you make some mistakes, start over. It's very easy to start over. Today's a new day, beginning of the year. You can do this, and you have a weekly support group here. So we can all, you can come here, you can listen to other people's stories, you can ask the questions, and it's free, which is kind of crazy. So it's pretty cool. The other thing I was going to mention, this is a sidebar. Guys, our webinar time is going to be changing starting next week. And I should have mentioned that at the beginning. You will get an email notification if you're already registered, but the time will change to Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Central. I realize that is not ideal for everyone, but every webinar will be recorded as well. Okay. You can find all of those on our YouTube channel, which I will link as well. Okay. All right. Back to the questions, but we're proud of you, Petra. Way to go. Okay. Let's see. Connie says, is it true that a lot of protein is hard on your kidneys, like in the keto diet?
Okay. No. The short answer is no. Protein is not hard on the kidneys. The problem is, if you have kidney failure, then protein, when you eat a lot of protein, there's a couple of things that happen. One is that your kidneys no longer hold on to protein. It's like poking holes in the filter, and the proteins are leaking through the filters. Okay, so that's one thing that happens. The second thing that happens is, as you process proteins, you develop what are called nitrogenous wastes, urea nitrogen and creatinine, and these and urea. These nitrogenous wastes are what's left over after proteins are processed, and that's what your kidney has to get rid of, and that's what you build up toxic levels of if your kidneys don't work. It's one of the things. So the idea that proteins are hard on your kidneys, no, proteins don't damage the kidneys. That's not what happens. But if you're eating excessive proteins and you have kidney failure, then you're going to have more toxicity. So that's why the nephrologists will tend to give you a very low protein diet if they're noticing any signs of kidney failure, like protein in the urine, or your creatinine starts getting elevated, or your estimated glomerular filtration rate starts dropping down. If the kidney specialist sees any of those things, they'll say, go on a low protein diet. The protein doesn't damage the kidneys, but you can increase toxicity in your blood by doing that.
Okay. Paul says, I have been on the diabetes solution kit protocol for 1 year. Great. Paul, let us know where you're at. Are you in phase 1? Are you in phase 2? Or how are you doing? I know we've talked with you before, but I'm curious to see how you're doing today. Let's see here. Meg says, can you let us know if carbs as resistant starch is important to use as a diabetic?
Oh, yeah, we've talked about this. We've done whole webinars on this. This is actually really important. So the resistant starch is what we call fiber or soluble fiber, or there's insoluble fiber. But the fiber is all of the stuff that we don't digest. The resistant starches are the things that we don't digest, but the bacteria in our intestines do. They love it. That's what they live for. So when you're eating a lot of resistant starch, you get good bacteria in your intestines, which is very important for lowering inflammation and improving insulin resistance. So yes, resistant starch fiber is excellent. In fact, when we were talking about this on the webinar, we were talking about some people, when they go on the very low carbohydrate diet, they think that all they can eat is like meat and fat, and so they have their I always call it the sausage, bacon, cheese omelet with cream, right? And then just like fat, fat, fat. Well, you know what? Fat can cause insulin resistance, and it can cause other problems as well. So having a very high fat diet does not go over well with some people, and so they need their diet to be different. They do the low carb, which means the regular starches and sugars. They're eating very small amounts, but it's a very high fiber diet. So you eat a whole bunch of celery and broccoli and cauliflower and lettuce, and so you're having salads and vegetables that contain a lot of fiber in them. But you're not getting all the carbs. You're not eating things like potatoes and carrots and starchy kinds of vegetables.
Meg also asked if cold and not rewarmed potatoes in small amounts would be a good choice.
That's the kind of thing where it depends on you. It depends on how your body functions. So as you're measuring things over the course of doing your phase 1 program, and you're going, gee, if I eat, the cold potatoes or whatever, that's still adding, 20 grams of starch in one serving. So that's all I get all day long. That's okay. That's fine. But that's still adding the sugar in. But remember, for the phase 1 of the program, you're detoxing. You're trying to get rid of all of that. You're trying to use up what's stored in all your cells. So you don't want to add any in. So otherwise, when you go into phase 2, you try those potatoes, you go, yeah, I tolerate them well. Yeah, they're good.
Okay. I remember a season where I was using potato starch with water and drinking it for my gut. Interesting.
Did it work?
I don't know. I don't remember. It must have helped, I guess. I don't know. That's funny. Okay. Let's see. Shelly says a coworker of mine has a 15-year-old daughter that is 290 pounds, and she's at her wit's end as what to do at this point to help her. What can I tell her to help her?
Okay. If you have a 15-year-old who weighs 290 pounds, there's more issues there than diabetes or weight loss or fat or eating, or this is someone who is probably eating for comfort. There's an emotional part of that. And if you don't deal with the underlying cause, then you're going to be chasing your tail all the time. It's never going to work until that underlying issue is dealt with. And so if there's some trauma or something else, then that girl, that 15-year-old girl, needs to deal with that trauma first. Because just going on a diet is not going to fix it.
Okay. Meg is wondering if cold barley would contain resistant starch.
Cold barley? Oh yeah, it has some. Yeah, it's not the coldness of it necessarily. So I assume what you're asking about is that The more you cook starches, the more you break them down and you make them more available, and so the sugar content increases. And there's some truth to that, and there's some amount of that. Like carrots, for example, if you boil your carrots for a couple of hours and you make them really mushy, they have less resistant starch because most of that is broken down. And now you have an immediately available starch, and so your sugar content goes up. And that's true with potatoes and rutabagas and any of those with resistant starch, and including barley and oats and wheat and things like that as well, the grains. So the answer is yes, but I researched this, the difference between like oatmeal, if you eat raw oats, like as in granola, they don't cook the oats, it's all like raw, versus eating a oatmeal that's cooked, mush, a porridge, that essentially it's essentially the same. It's pretty close. It does make a difference, but it's not a big difference.
Interesting. Okay.
Surprisingly.
Let's see. A question from Anonymous. I haven't been taking iodine for the thyroid for a month or two. Should I be taking it along with the other supplements suggested? Synachroma, Nervala, immune support, as I continue to manage type 2. Need to get a few pounds off since the holiday eating.
I know those holidays, dang. Okay, so iodine is a necessary nutrient. You have to have it, and it's not found in our soils. So they did studies 20 years ago on girls in high school in the Midwest, and found that 12% of them already had goiter from a lack of iodine. And these were high school girls. And why girls? Because girls need more iodine than boys do. And so I don't know if Anonymous is a girl or a boy or a man or a woman, but because of estrogen, the enzymes that convert the estradiol into estriol, those enzymes require iodine also. So your thyroid needs iodine, and you have all the estrogen processing that requires iodine. So women need more than men. So I would recommend taking iodine anyway. In fact, since it's not in the soil and that's 100 years old, that information is well known. It's well documented that in the United States, you're not going to get enough iodine unless you're eating seaweed, kelp, sea vegetables, and not sea salt. Sea salt, by the way, does not have iodine in it. A lot of people have come to me and, well, yeah, I use sea salt. No. Sea vegetables concentrate iodine, and they suck the iodine out of the salt of the sea. But sea salt has so little, it's not even measurable. So yes, take iodine.
And we do have an iodine product through Barton. So you can go to bartonnutrition.com. You will find our iodine supplement there. And if you use code webinar 25, you will save 25% on that. So Barton Nutrition comes in, it's a little dropper, and it's good. I mean, you don't really taste it. So this is a great note from Meg. We used an Annie's yellow gluten-free cake mix over New Year's. We made 72 tiny cupcakes from one box, each having about 1 gram of carbs per muffin. We shared them with others, and we froze some. It's a nice little dessert, and it satisfies. That is awesome.
Okay. Yeah.
Awesome.
You know what? I know people that do that with chocolate, like they'll take a whole chocolate bar and they'll just break one bar off and just have that one square. That's it, done. And they're good with it. And that's fine. I don't have a problem with that.
Right. And you're still getting something, and you're being careful, and good for you. Thanks for sharing it. It's always good to hear ideas, what people are doing. So, okay. Next question here. PPQ, does it have a role to help with diabetes?
Okay. PQQ,
Okay.
pyrroline quinoline quinone, is a very interesting molecule, and it's something that's not really a nutrient, but it is something that is made into um, something that mitochondria use, and they need it. And when they have this PQQ, the mitochondria reproduce faster. So you actually get more mitochondria from PQQ. So does it have a role in diabetes? Yes, but consider it in this sense. Is you're not going to like test your blood sugar and go, oh, I've been taking PQQ and my blood sugar came down. That's not the way it works. What it does is it allows your body to make more of those mitochondria, which are the energy powerhouses of the cells. And there could be thousands of them in a heart cell, for example. And the heart cell is like 40% mitochondria, and there's thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of them in that cell. And when you have diabetes and you can't get sugar into your cells, and your sugar is so limited, your metabolism isn't working right, you get fewer and fewer and fewer mitochondria, and so you lose energy. So your brain loses energy, your heart loses energy, your kidneys lose energy, and that's why you have problems with those tissues. But also, there's less energy in your muscles. And so if you add the PQQ, you can actually increase the number of those mitochondria, the powerhouses of the cells, and improve your energy production. As long as you're on the program where you're getting rid of toxicity, most of that toxicity damages mitochondria. So yeah, PQQ is a good idea. I recommend it all the time.
Today's Fixed Blood Sugar webinar is sponsored by Synachroma, our best-selling advanced blood sugar support formula. Now, thousands of people around the world are taking Synachroma every day as part of their program to fix their blood sugar using natural ingredients that simply work. Now, Dr. Saunders formulated Synachroma to meet key nutritional deficiencies that most people have unknowingly suffered from for far too long. With Synachroma, you get a blend of 6 key ingredients. The perfect combination of chromium, vitamin D3, and vitamin K2, which it's important to take those two together, selenium, vanadium, and our 10-to-1 cinnamon bark extract. Now, if you're not already using Synachroma, I highly recommend that you give it a try and see how it helps your energy, your weight, and your blood sugar numbers. You can get Synachroma at bartonnutrition.com or on Amazon. If you get it at bartonnutrition.com, you can enter the coupon code webinar25 and you'll save 25% off at bartonnutrition.com. But I realize some people like to go to Amazon as well. So anyways, Synachroma, highly recommend. Now let's get you back to the Fixed Blood Sugar webinar.
Okay. Someone is asking, how many capsules of Synachroma can you take in a day?
How many can you take? Well, if you look at what's in there, for the most part, the cinnamon's not going to be an issue one way or the other. The minerals aren't going to be much of an issue at all. It's really, you get to the vitamin D, and we put a full day's supply of vitamin D of 5,000 IU, international units, in one capsule. And that'll get you into the normal range for vitamin D, because I test people, I test their blood levels. And 2 capsules a day will get you into the high normal range. 3 capsules a day will probably get you into the toxic range. So we formulated it for 1 a day, up to 2 a day. When you first start, you can use 2 a day, 1 in the morning, 1 at night, with food. And then, but after a while, you can go down to 1 a day. And that's kind of as a supplement for people who have had problems with blood sugar. It's a great supplement just to take 1 a day all the time.
Okay. Again, you can find that at bartonnutrition.com. You can save 25% with code webinar25. Okay, great question here from Madeline. I realize that exercise is good, but I have some physical disabilities that hold me back. Any suggestions for exercises for a woman with osteoarthritis in knee and stenosis of the back? And one
Ooh,
quick question that I'm just going to ask this because it's come up before. What is better for someone, the cardio part of working out or getting the muscles to move?
okay. Well, for people with type 2, the best thing, the most important thing is using up that sugar that's been stored inside those muscle cells as glycogen. So once you use that up, then you open up your cells to allowing more sugar in, and then your diabetes goes away. So that's the important part for people with diabetes. So that partly answers your question, and that is, what can I do if I'm disabled? Well, that's the point, is anything you can do. And so what I usually do for somebody, stenosis of the spine, and what that means is the spinal cord, which is the nerve, is going through through the hole in the spinal column, and the bones surround it. But sometimes those bones are like, not the bones, actually, the cartilage pinching down on that spinal cord. And so it prevents the muscles down below that, where that pinch is, from being used well. And that's a tough problem. It's really hard and often requires surgery to correct. And the surgery is not always successful. So that's a difficult problem. So the answer to your question is whatever you can do. So you have your upper body. You can use your upper body as much as you can. So, if you can, I don't know, get some of those weights, you can weigh on that. I know the physical therapists that work with us in the nursing home, they have like those bicycle pedals that they use with their arms too, and you can have one of those. There are machines, of course, that you could work with that won't put pressure on your back or your knee to create a problem. And so what I usually do for someone in your kind of a situation, I send them to a physical therapist that I know works with people with disabilities, especially. And I ask the physical therapist to teach them, what can I do to use up to build muscle, use up energy, and strengthen my muscles.
And I don't think Dr. Saunders would recommend this, but you can also Google those types of things too. I mean, if you just were to Google exercises for or with your symptoms or your disabilities or whatever, you can actually find some things that do work. So just pretending that you're.
That's a good point. Just for the record, I don't have a problem with Google. In fact, very often people are in my office and they say, "Oh yeah, I was diagnosed with such and such disease." And I'm like, "I've never heard of that." I'll Google it. First thing I do while I'm talking to them, I'm Googling, "Oh, that's that. Okay."
Well, and it's all about Googling is
all the
good.
time.
You just got to make sure whatever you're looking at is from a place that you trust, right? It can't be someone's necessarily opinion. So, okay. Let's see. Okay, a couple questions about phase 1. Can you just give us a quick overview of phase 1 and phase 1 of the diabetes solution kit? And then you also, guys, you can also purchase this for under $20 for a digital copy at bartonwebinar.com. Okay. All right. Phase 1 overview.
Okay. So phase 1 is really simple, and it's a ketogenic diet. That's the simplest way to put it. But this is the solution kit will give you how to do it. So it's more of the how. How do I do this ketogenic diet? So what you do in our program is you count carbs, and so you learn over time what a carbohydrate is and how much. So if you're going to eat, an apple, that's going to get me pretty close to 20 grams of carbohydrates. And so I won't be able to eat very much the rest of the day if I do that. And then there are free foods, things you can eat as much as you want. If you want broccoli or cauliflower and you're using cauliflower rice with your vegetables, your stir fry or whatever, that kind of thing is free. You can have as much of that as you want. And then it just teaches you how to count the carbohydrates so that you say, I'm not going to eat over 20 grams. And we've had people go, they've written into us and said, I didn't do the 20 grams. I'm doing like 5 grams of carbohydrates a day. And it worked really well. So if you do less, that's fine. But this is kind of where the research has found that if people who eat less than 20 grams of carbohydrates a day, since they're not getting enough sugar to run their body all day long, that they have to switch to fat burning metabolism. And when you switch to fat burning metabolism, that means you've used up all of that excess sugar that you've stored in your body, and you've changed your metabolism. And when you have that, then the sugar goes down, the insulin goes down. So that's why that's important. And following the program is really simple. And so that's the overview of it. And if you get the book and go through it in specifics, then you can keep a record of what you eat and how many carbs are in it and all that. And you'll learn. And that's what you learn really over time is, you can go anywhere in eating and you go, okay, I know that has 5 carbs, that has 10 carbs. And then you can count.
Okay. What do you think of gummies for low blood sugar?
Gummies? Like CBD gummies?
I don't know.
I don't know. Because now they're making gummies for everything. My kids get vitamin C gummies and
they're tricky because they put so much sugar in those darn gummies. It's basically like candy. So it's like, here's your vitamin with candy all over it. Or sugar. Oh.
Yeah. When I was a kid, they had those vitamin D pills. My mom had bought some vitamin D pills, and I was, 5 years old. And the vitamin D pills had candy coating on them. And I just ate one after another. I don't know how many thousands of units of vitamin D I got that day. Just eating them like candy. Literally.
That's funny. And it depends. Are you saying like if your blood sugar is dropping and you're wondering, about eating a gummy to get some of the sugar, or maybe let us know exactly what you mean. But it does seem like there are a lot of things that are coming out in the gummy form. So I just don't know that we're familiar with that. Let's see. Okay. In the various phases following the diabetes solution kit, the blood glucose readings to stay in the stated phase are still based on medicated numbers. So does that mean I will quit the meds and take the blood sugar without the meds and see if I qualify in the phase 1 or the next?
Okay. Good. Excellent question. Excellent. So the question is essentially to broaden it to everybody is, what do I do about the medications? If I'm doing this program, how do I handle these medications? Because I'm taking my blood sugar and my blood sugar is dropping down very nicely, but I'm still on medications. So that's really important. So we've talked a lot about the specific medications, what they are and what they do and all of that, but that's not really important. And that's where you go with your healthcare provider who's prescribing your medications and you say, I'm doing this program. And most doctors are going to be like, oh my gosh, that's awesome. I wish all of my patients would do that. As your blood sugar is dropping down, then you're going to have to be going back and saying, okay, my blood sugar is getting a little bit low. I'm a little worried about hypoglycemia. Which medication can I stop now? And then you work with them as to how you decrease your medications, because the idea is you won't need them anymore. The medications become superfluous. You just don't need them because you no longer have insulin resistance. You don't need a medication for insulin resistance if you don't have insulin resistance. So So working with your healthcare provider and going off like one at a time and going, okay, I don't need this anymore. I don't need this anymore. I don't need this one. Oh, I'm off all my medications. And it's a wonderful thing.
Good. That's the goal. All right. Paul says, I have been on the diabetes solution kit for 1 year. I have made some progress early on, but then I've gone backward lately, so that my latest A1C was 7.3, which is a 4 increase from 6.4 increase from 6 months ago. I feel that I need to need a complete reset. In what ways can I motivate myself to get back on track and follow this protocol in a stricter way?
Well, motivation, that's a really good question. So, okay, because that's such an individual thing. What is your motivation? Sometimes we use fear as the motivation. You say, I do not want Alzheimer's disease. I do not want heart disease. I do not want to be on dialysis. And I definitely do not want amputations of my feet. Okay, so what am I going to do? What sacrifice am I willing to make to avoid these terrible outcomes? And so that would be one motivation, and that's a lot of people are motivated by that. I've had a lot of patients come in and say, oh yeah, my aunt had an amputation and I definitely do not want that. How can I get my blood sugar down so that that doesn't happen to me? So that's an important thing. But that's not the only motivation. You could be motivated by improvement. So you say, I want to have a healthy body. And in order to be healthy, I'm going to need to detox. And oh, look, the Barton Publishing has a great detox program for people with type 2. And so you do the detox program because you're moving towards being healthy. That would be another motivation. Other motivations include helping other people. So that would be motivated by love, because if you, let's say you have children and you see your children heading in the direction that you went in, and you say, oh my gosh, I don't want them to have to suffer what I suffer. So I'm going to sacrifice everything I love to eat so that I can so that my children don't have to suffer what I suffer now. And those kinds of things are motivations. But I don't know if any of you can come up with other motivations. That would be wonderful.
And we do have a webinar that's called Your Why, and it talks about really getting to figuring out what it is that will motivate you enough. So
that's right. That's in the book too. When you get the diabetes solution kit, that's one of the first pages in the book is find out your why.
Yes.
What is your why?
Okay. Peter says, I'm pre-diabetic and have been taking 2 Cinechroma a day, 1 turmeric and iodine every day, and 3 lean ACV. My last blood test was on 12.3. My A1C is down to 6.2. I've been lowering my metformin from 2 pills to 1 pill. At what point can I remove that 1 metformin a day? Do I have to wait until my A1C is below 5.7? And I probably should read the diabetic solution kit a little bit more thorough than I have in the past, so I know what phase that I'm in.
Okay, good work. So if anybody else knows what he's done, this is really good, because the 6.2 is non-diabetic. In other words, officially you no longer have diabetes. Now it's still called pre-diabetes, so it might be worth it to continue the metformin until you're out of the pre-diabetes. So if you're in the hemoglobin A1C of 5.6 or less, then you probably wouldn't need metformin at all. And then I agree, read the diabetes solution kit a little more closely and go through it a little, and tighten up your blood sugar control so that your insulin comes down and you open up those cells to allow the sugar to come in the cells from the blood, so that everything is functioning properly.
Peter also mentioned that he does walk 3 to 4 miles per day also.
Good work, Peter. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
that is. Okay. All right. Let's see. Annie said, I had my physical 2 weeks ago. The A1C is 6.7. And also my provider says that I have anemia. What is the best way to address the anemia?
Okay. Wow. Okay. So the cause of anemia is the most important part. So anemia is low hemoglobin, and what that means is the red blood cells. Normally, there's about, if you get a vial of blood and you let them settle out, there will be about 50% is red blood cells, and then the other 50% is the serum with all the proteins and white blood cells and all the other stuff in it. And that it settles out because it has iron in it, which is heavy, right? So it actually does that. That's kind of interesting. So so it's somewhere around 50%, usually a little less than that. But so people who have less than that, that's called anemia. And there's a lot of reasons for having anemia, and sometimes it's a genetic anomaly, and sometimes it's a protein problem, and sometimes it's a vitamin deficiency. There's two main vitamins, vitamin B12 and folic acid, that can cause anemia, and then sometimes it's an iron deficiency. So I can't make a recommendation and say, oh, just start taking iron for anemia. What you need is now studies, some a little more testing to find out why you have anemia. What type of anemia is it? And then whatever type it is going to tell you exactly what you need to do. So if you have a vitamin B12 deficiency and you have megaloblastic anemia, pernicious anemia, then the answer is simple. You're just going to get vitamin B12, and that fixes the whole problem. For iron deficiency anemia, which is more common in women because they have a menstrual cycle, and some women bleed a lot and they don't replace it very fast, and so they end up with anemia. That's more common in women than men. Men rarely have iron deficiency anemia unless they have some intestinal problem, they can't absorb it. So looking for why, that's the key to this.
Good stuff. Let's see. Dr. Saunders, I'm starting to crave carbs. I can relate to that. I'm not eating candy or donuts or anything, but I'll have the keto bread, 9 carbs per slice. I was just having only one, and now I want 2. I want crackers, but I won't put anything on them. What can I do to curb this before it gets out of hand? Common question. That is a common question.
Common question. And the answer to that is, I'm going to give you a pat answer. I understand that. Because it's not anything easy to deal with, because this is reality. I deal with it all the time. I'm one of those, when I was a kid, I would scrape candy off the sidewalk that was melted in the hot sun and eat it because my mom would never buy candy. We never had any at home. And I have the sugar cravings and all that. So and I fall into the trap, I guess, of eating sweets every once in a while. Like during the holidays, I did that. So what do you do? And the things that have worked best for me is substitution. So when I had Skittles in my car, and I was popping Skittles all the time as I'm driving along, I'm eating Skittles, and I would play a game with the kids even, and they would close their eyes, I'd pop a Skittle in their mouth, and they'd have to guess the color. And if they could guess the color, they got another one until they couldn't guess the color anymore. And within 3, nobody ever gets past 4, but rarely anybody gets past 3 because after 3 of them, you just can't distinguish between the taste anymore. Anyway, so I had Skittles for a long time, and I realized, you know what, that's probably not a good thing. So I substituted raisins, and raisins were fine. And then I read something about raisins are just as much, they're just little bags of sugar is all they are. So I'm like, okay, great. So what else can I do? So I substituted carrots, those little baby carrots. And that worked really well for a long time. And then I found almonds, and I like raw almonds. They're actually pretty sweet. So I still kind of alternate between almonds and carrots. And then because I don't have to have something all the time. Sometimes I'll have nothing at all. But substitution, what is it that you can eat instead of those crackers or that bread? And I totally get it, where sometimes I walk into the kitchen and there's fruit there, and there's vegetables, and there's all this other stuff, but I want some bread. And I don't know why I crave just that. Yeah, I try not to anyway.
You're not alone. Okay, question from Andy. I have made a concerted effort on reducing food intake and regular exercises in the last year. My LDL figures have ballooned in the last 4 months, though. Do you have any suggestions on how I can reduce the numbers naturally without having to take medication?
Okay. Yeah. What's really interesting? I've been doing some research on cholesterol and heart disease and all of that. We're putting out a book on heart disease. And so I've been looking at cholesterol. And if you look at the real figures, there was a computer learning program that was artificial intelligence in England. They took 400,000 people and put 10 years of their life into the computer. And they wanted this computer learning program to spit out what are the risk factors for a heart attack, for dying from a heart attack. And they had and all of the top ones were either lifestyle issues or inflammation. And cholesterol, LDL cholesterol was 46 out of 48. It practically wasn't even an issue with heart disease or vascular disease. I don't know if you have to lower your LDL at all, but if you want to, there are things you can do, and that is by increasing fiber. Fiber is the primary way of lowering cholesterol generally and LDL specifically. So what kind of fiber? People always ask, well, can I just do a fiber supplement like a psyllium seed supplement? Yeah, you can. It does work. It's been shown to work. There's been studies specifically on that, and it works. The issue I have with that is most of those have a lot of sugar in them, like a lot. Like for every teaspoon of psyllium, you get 2 teaspoons of sugar. It's quite a lot. So if you get just the pure psyllium seed and stir it into, I don't know, juice or water or whatever, and drink it down, that would work okay. Or some people sprinkle it on their food. They just put it on their food instead of putting it in water. And then making sure you get enough water to drink too. That would be important. But so the best way to lower the LDL is with a high fiber diet. So you can have all the celery you want, all the lettuce you want, all the broccoli and vegetables. All that's good.
Today's Fixed Blood Sugar webinar is sponsored by Synachroma, our best-selling advanced blood sugar support formula. Now, thousands of people around the world are taking Synachroma every day as part of their program to fix their blood sugar using natural ingredients that simply work. Now, Dr. Saunders formulated Synachroma to meet key nutritional deficiencies that most people have unknowingly suffered from for far too long. With Synachroma, you get a blend of 6 key ingredients. The perfect combination of chromium, vitamin D3, and vitamin K2, which it's important to take those 2 together, selenium, vanadium, and our 10-to-1 cinnamon bark extract. Now, if you're not already using Synachroma, I highly recommend that you give it a try and see how it helps your energy, your weight, and your blood sugar numbers. You can get Synachroma at bartonnutrition.com or on Amazon. If you get it at bartonnutrition.com, you can enter the coupon code webinar25 and you'll save 25% off at bartonnutrition.com. But I realize some people like to go to Amazon as well. So anyways, Synachroma, highly recommend. Now let's get you back to the Fixed Blood Sugar webinar.
Okay, one more question. Final question. I don't know who this is from, but it says, I started the program on December 1st of 2021. I was 124 pounds. Should I be concerned since my weight has consistently gone down? Yesterday, I weighed in at 109 pounds. I exercise 4 to 5 times per week. I check my blood pressure as well. My blood pressure has been low. My blood sugar was 4.1 this morning. Should I be concerned?
No, 4.1 between 4 and 5 is actually ideal. So you have like normal sugar now. And so for 4 to 5, for those of you who are using the US program, it is around 70. 4 is around 70. It's a little less than that. 70 to 80, 70 to 90, somewhere in there. Which is very normal. So there's nothing wrong with that. The weight loss, yeah, I don't know. You should find out what's going on. Maybe your pancreas isn't making enough insulin, because insulin is what tells the body to put on fat. So if you don't have insulin, then you're going to lose weight no matter what. Like, when I was explaining the difference between type 1 and type 2, people who don't make insulin, they just like shrivel up and shrink down. So that might be a good thing for you to do, is to test your insulin levels, or have your insulin levels tested, and also look at something called C-peptide. It's just C-peptide, which is the sort of a more of a long-term idea of how your pancreas is functioning for putting out insulin. Those two tests will tell you if it may be a little insulin deficient, which is why you would have a hard time keeping on weight.
Okay. All right, guys. Dr. Saunders is going to go be with his patients. I'm so thankful.
Bye.
For you. Bye-bye. See you next Wednesday.
All
New
right.
time, Wednesday, 1 p.m. Bye, Dr. Saunders. And just a reminder, you guys, again, we're changing this webinar to Wednesdays, 1 p.m. Central Time. You will, if you've already signed up for the webinar, you will get a reminder about that. And you may even get actually, I think I'll do it right after. I'll change the webinar and it'll ask me if I want to send it to all of you. And I am going to do that. So set that, change your calendar, change your planner if you're able to join. If not, we apologize. But these are all recorded. So if you go to bartonwebinar.com, you'll be able to see a link to our YouTube channel where you can watch all of our webinars. There are some that still need to be uploaded. We're just waiting for some editing on those. But I mean, there's like 120 episodes. So lots of good information, and people are asking questions, and you can even do some searches to see, specific topics that you may want to chat about. So again, thank you all for joining. We absolutely love doing these webinars. This is a part of our mission, is to be able to reach more people and to help more people, because we want to see you guys succeed too. So share this webinar with a friend. Looks like we did max out on our webinar today, so hop on early. Yes, 1 p.m. Central is the new time. I think that's it. So we will see you all next week. And Joe will be back with us. Thank you all so much. I'm excited. It's a new year. We can set some new goals. We can work hard together, come together here. It's a really good community. Lots of support. You can see people even answering your questions without us having to. And we so appreciate that, and sharing recipes and ideas. You can also join Barton Webinar on Facebook. There's a private group there that I have to approve you to. But that's a really good place for you guys to kind of build your own community, because everyone there's typically maybe pre-diabetic or type 2 diagnosed, and they're wanting to make some changes. So you can ask questions there, post thoughts, ideas, etc. So you all are awesome. We will see you next week. Thank you so much for joining, and have a wonderful week.